Today we're going to be talking about the miracle of Humic Fulvic and understand something. There's many amazing products on this planet. We would be here forever talking about them all, but this one here, it is like a high intelligent, high vibrational product, and we're going to explain it today, but really John's going to explain it, right John?
Yes.
All right, so let's kick it right off. What is Humic Fulvic?
Well, to understand that fully, we need to look at what happens chronologically. So today it's defined as an extract from a tertiary deposit, which tertiary period in Earth's history is sort of 2.5 to 50 million years ago, roughly. So there's three main systems on the planet that we're concerned with to have life be happy and healthy. The number one, we absolutely need the hydrological cycle, which is we need water to evaporate off the ocean, go over the land, and give life-giving water to the plants so that they can grow and we can live. The next one that we need is we need photosynthesis. So the sun rays come in, the plants use those sun rays to grow and to take energy and create it into matter. The last one that's largely missed is we need organic carbon. So when things grow out of photosynthesis and water, now you've got a plant there. When that plant dies, how do we get that organic carbon that was formed from everything in the earth? How do we get that back to the next generation of plants or animals so that it can grow properly and have enough carbon and oxygen and organic carbon? The key thing that we need in order to complete that organic carbon cycle is we need fungi, we need microbes in the soil. Over millions of years, these molecules, these organic molecules that come from organics, they have to be broken down to a point where the plants can use it or can interact in the rhizosphere of the plants so the plants can use it. And
yeah, because the plants don't have teeth.
yes, exactly.
Okay. And can I ask, why do we need carbon?
Well, we're formed of carbon, so we need a source of carbon as a base to construct cells and everything else we're using in our body. Now, I don't want to overspeak too far, I'm not a chemist, but that's a good rough way to look at it. So now you have the earth and it's going along great for millions of years and our organic carbon is being recycled, everything's happening, and along comes man with salt-based fertilizers. In an effort to feed mankind, they're trying to drive yields through the roof of our agriculture, and somebody figured out that a salts-based fertilizers are really great for the plants. So we started to do that. Unfortunately, we started to kill the soil, all the microbes, all the fungi. Then with the advent of other chemicals that came on, we're killing them more and more. So now our soil isn't healthy and living, and we're not breaking down the organics into the way that we need to. So it becomes very important to find
because the organics aren't organic anymore.
Right.
Most of them. Yes.
Right. So we need to figure out how to get enough into our bodies. But that's sort of the genesis of Fulvic and Humic and where it comes from and why it's becoming important. It's important to note that Humic and Fulvic, it's a term that gets bandied around like it's a specific molecule. It's not. So it's not defined by a clear chemical signature. People have drawn clear chemical signatures, but the true definition of it gets defined operationally. So the classic definition, and this of course is always changing, is organic acids from a tertiary deposit that is soluble at any pH range as fulvic.
And tertiary meaning, again, 2 million to 2.5 million years ago.
2.5 million to about 50 million years ago.
Wow, so just think of the vibration back then. I mean, just everything, because we didn't mess around with anything then. Everything was high vibrational, more oxygen, more nutrition, so the life force was there.
I agree completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, before we started to kill it and pollute it.
Yeah.
So if we look at fulvic and humic acid and we look at the range of benefits that it provides, not only for plants and animals, but for humans, for any living cell on the planet, it can kind of seem like it's a miracle molecule until you accept the fact that it's a broad consortium of molecules with all types of different functionalities that your body has over eons developed to the point where it utilizes those inputs so that it can function properly. So if you take them away, just like you would take water away or food away, your body's not getting what it needs. So it'll have a broad range of effects on you depending on what it is that your body is needing.
Right.
But that's sort of where Humic and Fulvics come from. So you were asking about the different kinds of Humic and Fulvics out there and the different products out there.
Well, first, can you tell me
Sure.
what they're made out of? Okay, so there's Humic and Fulvic is made out of plant life. What else is it made out of?
So it's organic acids that are predominantly carbon with a ton of carbon and oxygen, and when they sit in the ground and decay,
Right.
they naturally will pick up minerals and stuff that's in the soil, because if you think about a fulvic or humic molecule having 60 hands, and as they get disconnected from their bonding points, then these hands have to do something. So when a good mineral goes by or whatever, they grab it and they have it, and that'll transport that into your body and where you need it. So then it begins with, this is a fulvic or humic acid or organic acid, and all kinds of things get on it. And this is where it becomes critical, the source that comes from a long time ago before mankind's pollution. And the other thing that's critical about it is it will take in minerals and other things from the soil in a size that is very, very small and we can absorb.
Yeah, so it's like a pre-digested, to be ready, a pre-assimilated product. So when it comes in, it takes very little energy, and it's also magnetized to your cells.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So one of the interesting things that you talk about cells and where it comes from and its function is, in the studies that we've done, you can actually drive more energy from a cell with less waste output, without less oxidants coming out, without that stuff. And that tells me that now we're talking about cellular function, and that your cells need this stuff. And it makes perfect intuitive sense if thousands of years ago we were functioning with it, and we're not getting it to the same degree. If you add it back in, it has this effect on you.
Yeah, so there's no real miracle. We're just bringing back the harmony that mankind, humankind, had many, many, many years ago. And when you start depleting things, well, we are at the top of the food chain. We're going to get it eventually, or not get it.
Yes, agreed. So, should I carry on now talking about sort of what the products are out there? Or
Yeah, I would like you to talk about what's out there. And you know what? Just so everybody understands, it's like this. You don't put somebody down to put something up. So we're just going to talk about products that are out there, and that there is different products. When it comes to humic and fulvic, there's a broad range. And some of them aren't worth more than dirt, and some of them really do create a higher vibration and do what they're supposed to do.
Yes. So if we look back chronologically at the industry, which I think is a nice way to look at it, if you go back thousands of years, people were using things that were coming out of the soil for health, Ayurvedic medicine, Chinese medicine. What's happened is people started to figure out that this stuff was really, really good for agriculture. So they started to use it in agriculture. People then thought, well, they've been using it in Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine for thousands of years, we should use it. What ended up happening is a lot of agricultural plants with humic and fulvic started to sell a sideline of human. Well, which, is good, but one needs to be careful with that. So if we look at, there's a lot of good products on the market, and it seems like everybody's working hard to make their products better. So that's a good thing. The bad thing is that there's a lot of products out there right now, and call a spade, that I wouldn't put in my body.
Yeah, it's
And
a
that's
wild, wild
concern.
west when it comes to humic and fulvic.
Absolutely.
And you know what? There isn't enough regulation out there that you can actually stick things on and you just say it. But there's nobody actually looking at this to find out if it's real.
Right. And
Yeah.
so that's where due diligence and the questions that Daryl's asked me in this process that we've gone through to get him comfortable with not only the source but how we process it. That's key in this market, because there is a lot of people out there selling stuff that you probably shouldn't put in your body.
Probably shouldn't, yeah. So why don't we talk about the product that you work with and where it comes from, how you process it, and what makes it different.
Sure. That's a long discussion. I'll
But
try to be brief.
No, it can't be brief. It needs to
Okay.
be long. This has to be done right, because guess what? If you make it short, you're going to have people out there trying to challenge you. Whereas if you take it and you go gentle, step-by-step process, then they can understand it. Then they'll go do their own research and find out that you were telling them something important. Okay. So if you could, everybody wants to know the real story, not the short story. You know, this is the one thing I noticed more and more, even ever since we started this new C thing that's going on. Everybody says, I'll only tell you short. I'll just keep you for a moment. Because everybody has anxiety and you don't. But the reality is, no, why don't we take the time to really do things right the first time? Really tell the story. So I'm telling everyone out there that I'm not talking to John right now. I'm telling you all that honor yourself and take the time to communicate things in an effective way so that people can make a really good decision.
There's many deposits around the world, but if you go back to what I said earlier, how the deposits are formed, of course there's going to be different species of organics. There's going to be that are falling to the forest floor. They're either going to be in a saltwater area or they're going to be in a freshwater area. The fungi are going to be different. If you just look at a plant, one of the key parts of a plant is a lignin, which essentially is the backbone of the plant. If you grow the same...
What is a lignin?
A lignin is sort of like a backbone, so it's the structure...
It would be the skeleton of the plant.
Yes, yep.
But it's not actually bone. It's fiber material.
Right. Kind of a resinous thing. So
resinous.
And that makes a... but it's got a high degree of carbon in it anyway. But
yes.
The plant, the same species, 50 miles apart, well, the lignin will look different. So you can imagine the diversity of deposit that you get if you are looking at a deposit that is in a different country or different geographic area.
Right.
And one's was buried in salt water and one was in fresh water.
Right.
So there's already thousands of constituents that make up humic and fulvic, but now you add a level of complication to it by its different sources. The other thing that complicates it is how is it extracted from those sources? So because it's got all these hands that are grabbing all these molecules and everything, it gets bound to the insoluble portion in the deposit. So how do you get that out of there? There's some people who wash it with water and think that's good enough, but they're not getting the good stuff out. So you have to really understand the chemistry of what's going on, not only in general with humic and fulvic, but you have to understand it specifically for the deposit you have. You also have to have a clear understanding of what it is you're trying to accomplish to put those two together. I'll give you an example, and it'll point to a differentiation of this product. Traditionally, this stuff is made in a giant chemical vat. So they take the insoluble portion, they put it in a tank, they mix it up, and then they pour buckets of chemicals into it. And they use a base acid extraction. First, they take the pH really, really high so they can disassemble the valuable portions off of the insoluble part. And then that goes into a vat and they let the stuff settle out. And then if they want to get a targeted fulvic, they would add buckets of chemicals and they would take the pH really, really low. Lots of stuff falls out that they call humic, and that supernatant or that fluid's left, they happily open the tap, put it in bottles and sell it to people. It has a crazy amount of residue or salts in it, and it's difficult at times to get that consistent batch to batch. So we utilize the physical characteristics of humic and fulvic to extract it. Certainly we have to get in there and mix it up with it and bash it around and put some kind of force on it to get everything to loosen up. But then we use physical attributes and parameters to separate what it is that we're after.
Instead of so much chemical.
Absolutely.
That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want you to keep talking about that, but can you tell everybody what is the difference between humic and fulvic?
Certainly. Fulvic is a subset of humic. So when you refer to humic, you're referring to both humic and fulvic. Fulvic is a term for an isolated humic. So they're not disparate, so to speak, which brings up another really, really valuable point. If we have the concept or idea that fulvic is this and humic is that, then we ought to be able to delineate perfectly between the two and its functionality, which is something we're working on. But it brings up this point. Whether or not you're talking about a humic or you're talking about a fulvic, Are you talking about a broad spectrum product that will give you a good range of effects that your body need, or are we talking about an isolate like the pharmaceutical company would do? This product is a broad range product that'll have a broad effects on your health in many different areas, because that's closest to what we're getting in nature.
Right, right.
So if we take that out of there and manipulate it too far, then we're getting away from what it is we all want, which is as close to natural as practical.
Yeah, high vibrational carbon.
Perfect.
Yes. So let's keep talking. I want to know more about the industry, what they're doing out there, what the product that people are getting, like the majority of the product, like what is the percentage of the product that people are getting like on the market that you do? And can you explain about your process compared to, I mean, I think somebody told me that 98% of the product is done in that chemical process way.
Yes, I would agree with that.
And only 2% is actually done in a way that should be honored. You know, that's an honorable way, a real honorable way. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about more of that. And it's because people they deserve to be able to go out and spend their money in a proper direction and get what they're, because not only, you know, if it was just empty and it wasn't doing something, that'd be great. But the higher toxicity is not what we need right now.
No. So you'll find a lot of Fulvic products, and we'll talk about that first. You'll find a lot of Fulvic products out there that are a light golden color. And people talk about how awesome that is, and it's this gold Fulvic, and it's wonderful. Well, I challenge that, particularly when I test a lot of them, and I do the math and figure out they would be pretty hard on your body if they were in a super concentrated form. We also find that in the agricultural market, where they're selling a Fulvic that's so riddled with other things that if they gave it to the plant in a concentrated form, it would hinder the plant, not help the plant. So on the humic side, what ends up happening a lot of times these plants that they've built for agriculture, because agriculture is a real competitive world when it comes to crop inputs, they build it for maximum yield, and chemicals are cheap. So they end up scavenging out of there all kinds of stuff, and some of the stuff that you don't want. So they're not very selective. And there's a lot of products on the market that actually come from agricultural plants. So there's really no regard given to being very, very selective for the human body. They're just looking to make it cheap and move it out the door towards agriculture. Well, that might work. It might not. I do find it interesting, though, that the world's leading agricultural companies are headed towards food-grade inputs. I think that speaks volumes. You've got some of the big companies out there. They're actually looking at nutritional density. They're now getting beyond, we have to beat our competitor with price. They're now we have to get...
They hit the wall.
Yes.
They hit the wall on chemical, and that's why. And they know that if they don't start to pivot, you know, you can only poison the planet and people so often, and then they're going to know that you're up to something no good. So nobody wants to get caught with their pants down.
Exactly right.
Right. Okay, so what? So the golden color is not what we want. Why is it golden?
Well, it's not that we don't want it.
Okay.
So a range of the molecules will refract back as gold, and that's made up of a few other colors. It's more, for me, it makes me suspicious, and it makes me want to test the product for what else is in there, and why are they giving such a weak and dilute product?
Right.
So this stuff is very efficacious. A small amount goes a long ways. But when I see light golden yellow stuff being sold for crazy prices, and they're making outrageous claims to the fulvic acid content, then I get suspicious. We bring some in, we do the lab tests. Usually, well, every time so far, it's been proven correct that there's nowhere near what they say is in there. This doesn't seem to be widely understood, but when people talk about this as 60% fulvic or 70% fulvic, I have to scratch my head. Because when we take ours to 60 or 70%, it becomes a gelatin or it becomes solid. It's so hygroscopic, it grabs water. So you know already it can't be that much in there. Right. So we get it tested, and usually we're right.
Right. Okay. Really good. Okay, so what other fulvics is there any other different types we'll see out there, or humics that people are doing that we would? What could I look for that I don't want to buy? What should I look for that I should buy?
I've recently seen a product in a store that proudly displayed the word lignosulfonate on the back. And lignosulfonates come from a pulp mill. So I've never seen a food grade pulp mill. I've never seen the checks and balances. So they're buying this stuff that's super cheap and they're selling it as a fulvic acid because it can give you the right color if you're careful. The other one is molasses will give you the right color, so they're selling you golden. And the worst one I've ever seen is a bottle being sold in South Korea that's water. There's nothing in it. It had like the TDS in it was like 2 ppm. There was nothing in it. It was RO water in a bottle that they were selling for $25. Kind of scary.
Yeah, really kind of scary. Okay, so where does the humic fulvic come from that we use?
We pull it from Alberta. So there's a number of good deposits in Alberta that are a fresh source and they've got the right period stamp on them. And not a geologist, but we're kind of not all the way over at oxidized lignite. We're not all the way at humic shale. We're somewhere in between.
What are those?
Well, you would need a geologist to really explain that. But what happens is lignite gets on the ground, then over time it has to become oxidized. Otherwise, it's just lignite. And the oxidized one is really has a lot of the power.
And lignite is just the carbon, right?
Yeah.
It's just the carbon.
Yeah.
And then it's got to get oxidized.
Right.
Okay.
Carbon and some other things. And there again, I'm not a chemist, but
right.
you've got it roughly correct. So we're very, very happy with our source. When we do the advanced analytics that we do, we see some different constituents in there that will have some different functionality for people. Like so we're not perfect, but we're working really, really hard to dial that in and connect the line between cause and effect.
Right.
But so far what we've seen, we're very, very encouraged. So we think the deposit is unique. The extraction process and technology is unique, and we've patented it.
Can you tell us anything about the extraction?
Other than we utilize the physical attributes of the molecules.
Okay.
That's about as far as the lawyers tell me I should say.
Okay, all right. Yeah. Okay. So what else about the product?
In terms of the amount that you need to take to be efficacious, some people find that their system is in real need of help and they take a lot. And other people find that they don't need that much and they take a little. When you deal with regulatory bodies and scientists who are worth their weight in gold, they'll always bring it back to dosage. How much should you have? How much can you have? Is there a point that it becomes toxic? At what point can you make this claim or say that? At what level can you do that? And that's a complicated puzzle that we're working on. But I can say that we've had our product tested to 2,000 milligrams per kilogram of body weight per day with no toxic effects.
Oh, that's great.
It's like a mountain every day. I don't think you could physically do it.
Well, that's what people need to hear, though,
yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. And okay, so you've done tests. Can you do any other tests on other products and find differences in what you found, or can you tell us that?
Yeah, yes, I can. So we can bring in other products and do the testing in-house, and some of the tests that we do are proprietary, and some of them are a little bit, they're well known. You can certainly look at its light refraction and get a footprint for how it's coming through an instrument called a spectrophotometer and kind of get relative molecular weights and a few other hints and clues out of that. The simple ones are like a total dissolved solid. So you figure out how many solids are in the liquid, and then you measure that compared to what they say they're selling in terms of percentage. Those are a couple of the simple ones. But it's an area that mankind doesn't really have the tools and the sophistication yet to go in and measure these thousands of these organic compounds. But it's something that we're actively working at, both with the Canadian government and with the universities. So we're hoping sometime in the next year or two to unlock some of those mysteries and draw a better line between cause and effect.
Yeah, so you're basically in the health business. You're not a practitioner, but you're in the health business. So what can you tell us about the product from where you stand and what you think it can do for human beings, especially in this time?
I think the product gives people's body what they need for their body to function properly. I think that's key. I think the body is a miracle. It's an amazing thing. I think if it gets what it needs, a lot of the problems that we have, not being a doctor, but just from what I've seen and the stories that I've heard, I think you give the body what it needs and treat the body right, and you can speak better to this. I think that's enough.
I can. I mean, when people even just do our black gold, they just call up and they're just like, I can't believe how this changed my life. And then when they start doing the tummy love for their large intestine, and then depending on the person, the more toxic they are and more acidic they are, the more of the fulvic concentrate we'll give them. And then hormonal balancing and viral load, bacterial load, we look at the humic concentrate, right? Mm-hmm. And then, the product is really one of my favorites is the Black Diamond, because it's so easy to carry with you. And you get the best of all the worlds, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a blend of both.
Can we talk about that a little?
Absolutely. If we look at the effects that Fulvic and Humic have on the body and the testing that we've done in vitro, we see that Fulvic and Humic, or the different areas of the broad humic spectrum, do different things. Some of them seem to be a signaling device. We suspect it's for the endocannabinoid system. And some of them seem sort of to be like a garbage truck that hauls stuff out. And figuring out what's going on in the epithelial layer, I believe it's called, in the stomach, and figuring out how the signaling and how that interacts is something that we've got programmed in a research process. With such a broad range of effects, it's difficult to dial it in exactly. I love the idea that it helps with gut health now that we're all figuring out how important the stomach is.
Well, here's the situation. I have a really good, and I mean a really good, good bacteria product. It's got everything it needs. And when I really started getting into like the black gold, the tummy love, and of course, even the fulvic, the humic concentrate, and then especially now with the Black Diamond, our sales have dropped probably 90. We figure so far it's around 96% on. Nobody buys our good bacteria anymore, and everybody buys that. And so, what I've come to understand over the last 3 years is that it's all about mommy's bacteria. It's all about environment. It's all about feeding the bacteria that were first there, which was mommy's bacteria, not all these other bacteria. And just because I've been into the whole bowel business for so long, yeah, taking a good bacteria product is good, but it's foreign. Whereas we're finding that the humic fulvic products that we're carrying are actually reestablishing the original, which is mommy's bacteria, and we don't need the others. We don't even need them anymore. So that's how crazy it is. And so people are just like, oh no, you need to supplement with good bacteria. You need many different strains. And I'll be honest with you, I think that the philosophy is right, but it's not as right as what we're doing now. So we've had to pivot because the product actually told us we needed to pivot, because it's creating an environment which the good bacteria explode. I mean, I've got people that are doing, they get fecal tests because of they'll go and get a fecal test, and then they'll go get another one later. And the difference is day and night. We're talking about day and night. And that's without doing any good bacteria. And like I said, what did Louis Pasteur said? It's not about the bug. It's about the environment. If you can get the environment right, the bug is going to go from bad to good, and it's going to multiply at a very fast rate.
Yes. So we did a study on mesophilic digestion, somewhere around 50.
What's mesophilic?
It's somewhere around 50 degrees centigrade.
Okay.
And what we found was that the rate at which the microbes were decaying what we put in there was 75% higher. The only mechanism that could have done that is the bacteria. There's another, the molecule of humic and fulvic, they seem to talk out of both sides of their mouth all the time. So they're at Shwaiger, meaning they're positive and negative, so they'll have those different effects. Also, they're hydrophilic and hydrophobic, so some of it will be in solution, some of it will be in what's called colloidal suspension. So what ends up happening when these bugs use it and they get driven to go faster and faster and faster is the good bugs that are in your stomach, it seems that they would do very well, because this interplay that fulvic and humic have in its oddities, and it seems to, and I'm not an expert in this area, it seems to hinder gram-negative, which you'll find a lot of pathogenic and bad bacteria, and it seems to help gram-positive. So that in itself is worth its weight in gold in your body. Just driving everything faster.
So, I know, but don't people have a problem with how something can be negative and positive at the same time? And then there was something else you said, you know what I mean?
Hydrophilic and hydrophobic.
Yeah, how can that be? And can you explain those,
Absolutely.
what both of those are?
Certainly. Sorry, I should have done that. But it is really, it's a good thing to know. So hydrophilic means it'll go all the way in solution, and hydrophobic means it doesn't. It's kind of scared of water. So it goes back to what I was saying earlier about this is thousands of constituents, and it's not a specific molecule. It's a macromolecule. So they're all different, like snowflakes. So one end of the molecule, if it's a, let's just make it a long stringy one end of the molecule will be fine to go into solution. So it'll just fit into the water molecule there perfectly. It's all done.
Right.
The other end might not. So the one's in, the other it's hanging out. And when it's that small and it's being suspended like that, we call that a colloidal suspension. The other one I mentioned was a Shwaiger, which means it can be both positive and negative. And it's the same thing. So if you're looking at a big molecule, there's portions that'll be negative and portions that'll be positive. And that's I think, one of the major benefits of it, is it can have a broader effect. If you just put something in that's fully negatively charged, it's not going to interact on so many levels with the human body than if you put something in that's both positive and negatively charged.
And that's what makes this product so special that other products out there in the nutrition or detox industry aren't doing. Well, they can't perform like that. I mean, think about it. This product can actually carry all these micronutrients into the cell, dump them off, and have the intelligence to actually load itself up with 3 times its weight with toxicity. So it's like, come in, dump my load into the cell of the goodness, and then pick up at least 3 times its weight and take it in, but also lock it down with the fulvic that we have, the fulvic concentrate, and with the black diamond crystals, and it'll lock it down so you don't have to experience the negative symptoms all the way out of the body.
It wraps itself around things like viruses. It wraps itself around toxins. It makes your cells function better, so there's less garbage leaving anyway. And a really interesting thing that it does, because it's both negatively and positively charged, is it'll adhere to the side of the cell wall and make the membrane more permeable. Think about it, it's an oversimplification, but think about it in terms like something comes up against the side of the cell and it needs a key. Well, there's your fulvic and humic with both a negative or positive key to lend it and
To
allow
amplify.
it. That's a perfect word for it.
So what it does, it amplifies. And understand something. Everybody know this, that on every one of your cells on the outside, we have an antenna signature. And there's not one person that has the same antennae as another. So understand, what like Bruce Lipton says is that antenna is actually to bring in the spirit frequency 24/7. And the reality is now we're using a physical product to amplify so that the frequency, not the nutrient, but to help the frequency come in smoother, and so the cell can hear it and understand it, and it'll come in and do what it needs to do, because we know that cancer is turned on by a frequency, turned off by a frequency. We know that a frequency can actually help to decalcify the mitochondria inside that actually create the ATP, that create the energy. So the fulvic helps to harness the energy to come in to do its job better.
Well said.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there is another little thing about the fulvic molecule that we've learned from the agricultural market. And as a precursor to cell division on growth is cell elongation. So the cell will get longer and like an oval, and then it'll cleave in the middle. We know fulvic acid helps with the cell elongation. So it'll give the cell what it needs so that it can elongate quicker.
Elongate and then duplicate itself and split.
Exactly.
Wow, that's amazing. That it's amazing that something 2.5 million years ago, and it was just a deposit that somebody would think was just shale or coal or something, right?
Yep.
Right? Yeah. How far down do you have to dig for this?
It's different in different deposits, but not really far. Don't think about it like narrow vein mining or something where you have to go a long ways into the earth. Depending on the area and how much sediment got there by Earth's forces, whether it's wind or a glacier pushing on top of it or something, I mean, depending on what it was, think about it in terms like that. So different deposits will require different depth to go and get it.
So the way that we process our product, it's unique to anyone else in the world, correct?
Yeah, it's patented. We can't say definitively that somebody out there isn't producing it using our technology illegally, but it's a patented technology, and we keep our eyes out for products that look like ours because it's pretty simple. It's pretty easy to identify if you know what you're doing in Fulvic.
Yeah, because you can tell quality pretty fast.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so what does make ours different? And also in purity, what would you say?
Well, purity is a question going back to broad-based or an isolate.
Okay.
Some people want to look at purity for a natural health product like you would a pharmaceutical, and they're talking about an isolate. So they want one specific molecule out of there, and that's their definition of purity. I use a bit different of one. Purity to me is how close is this molecule that you're getting, or this broad range of molecules you're getting,
Right.
how close are they to the way that the earth intended them to be, to the way that our body can use them.
So basically, pure to form in nature, unadulterated.
Yes. Yeah, and it's a big ask to do anything unadulterated, so you're going to have to do something to get it out of the ground and to get it processed and get it so that we can get rid of some of the bad stuff that's in there too.
Yeah.
It's outside, so there is some bad stuff that was around millions of years ago, and it will be forever. I mean,
In every organic fruit and vegetable that you eat today, you're going to have bad stuff in it. That's it. You're not getting away from that. Right.
Yeah. So we want to process it in a way where we limit that.
So what makes the absorption of our product better than, not all of them, but for what we know the most out there? Why is it? Why does it absorb better?
When you start to affect a molecule using chemicals and pH and you start to change the molecule, and we have systems in our body that are designed to stop that stuff from getting in us. So if you play with it too much, it might not match what your body needs.
So maybe, it's nice to just heat it up with the oven instead of using a microwave, because when you can heat up the food like an oven, but the reality is we know that a microwave will change the structure in a food.
Right.
Right. So is it something like that?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So whereas an agricultural plant will blast through the stuff for maximum throughput, the minimum amount of time they can take to get the maximum yield,
Right.
irrespective of anything else, that's not a good environment as far as I'm concerned to get a good natural health product. You need people who care and are willing to take the time to create the right product in the end, not just be blasting it through for maximum yield.
And I know John probably wouldn't say this, but we do have the best product in the world. So I already know that. And you know what? I don't say that because it's come by my product. It's just I don't want to live any other way. We do interviews on people that we get our product from, and we really do want to make sure that it is pure, it's high vibrational, it's got to be what it's got to be. You know what? It's all about integrity. So let's talk about the plant and where it's processed. Why is it different? Why is it unique than other plants that might do humic fulvic? Or maybe it's not, but what sticks out about us?
They're massively different. So when you go to produce a good food grade quality product, you have to control everything in the plant. The humidity, the heat, the cool. You have to have systems that clean everything. You have to validate those systems to make sure it's all getting cleaned properly. It all has to be tracked on software. You have to have quality assurance people on site. You need to have a quality manager. You need to use third-party labs. You need to validate everything from one end to the other. And then when the product is done, it gets sent out, each batch gets sent out for extensive testing. Expensive as heck, but really, really worth it. It's got to be sent out. Then the quality assurance or quality manager will sign off on it.
Right.
With an agricultural plant, I've never seen one that has a proper cleaning system. I've never seen one that has a proper environmental system where they control the environment that it's made in. They don't have clean in place where they're cleaning everything on a regular basis. They blast it through, count on the pH being through the roof to, if not kill everything in there that's harmful, then to retard it so it won't grow until it gets into your body. And then they send it out. So it is the difference between somebody building a wooden wagon for their kid in a house or going to one of the top premium car companies in the world. The lengths we go to make sure that what we're doing, we can sleep at night and we're providing, maybe not perfect, but the absolute best we can for people on a regular basis. It takes a ton of time, it costs a ton of money, but it's something we're passionate about.
Right. So there is no regulation out there yet. Not anything that we can really, or there's no blueprint book that people go by. So it's a bit of a wild, wild west out there, right?
It can be.
Yeah.
So we adhere, so we're Health Canada site licensed and we adhere to good manufacturing practices. So that's, if somebody's going to the length and effort to do that, that's a good first step.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. What else can you tell us that, just things that, stories that uniqueness about the Humic, the Fulvic, things that stick out? Whether it's agriculture or it's farm animals or it's human beings.
There's a couple of areas that I hear about quite a lot that I'll mention.
Sure.
The one area, or the one thing that has surprised me several times is hearing stories of people taking our product and then all of a sudden, one in particular comes to mind. Somebody was in the hospice, they started to take our product kind of with the attitude, what did they have left to lose? And a few weeks later they were at home. Well, I'm a little bit of a, I won't say cynic, but I'm a little bit careful with the stories I believe.
Yeah, but you know what? That's good. But the reality is I already know people who have taken the product and actually went to hospice and they did go home. So.
And as it turned out, because
what
I
if there was a
investigated
key,
these
one little key missing to open up the door? I'm not saying it's going to do it for everyone, but I've seen it.
And so have I. So when I started to research this story, because I became interested in it, I found out it was in an area that was a very dirty industrial city with really bad heavy metal poisoning. And then it was like, okay.
That's why.
Now I can understand this story.
Yeah.
We hear stories about ladies who are having issues with menopause. And this one has the clearest delineation between cause and effect, meaning when they don't take it, they have some of the symptoms, but when they do take it, they don't have the symptoms. That's another area that for me really, really stands out. And then the final one is energy. So it was really, it's a neat story. So the person that we utilized to do a bunch of our testing for cause and effect on this is a person that's got 40 years of experience. So she's ran department heads at universities and she's worked all over the world. She's got 40 years of experience. And so she ripped into our stuff, worked it out, we're figuring it all out and everything. And so I asked her one day, well, what do you think of it? I mean, it's not a fair question really, but I asked her, what do you think? She says, I take it every day. And I'm like, holy, that's a surprise, really? Why are you taking it every day? She says, because if I don't, I have to go home in the afternoon and finish my work in the evening. And when I take it, I just power through and I'm home at 5 or 5:30 and I'm with the family. Energy, I hear a lot.
Yeah, well, that's my secret. And the thing is about the product, we use our concentrated liquid fulvic when people are on advanced water fast because it doesn't turn on their digestive tract. We haven't seen any of that. And it really helps to speed up the autophagy process. We've seen difference in people that have done a fast before with us, and then they've added about 4 or 5 products. They're not a lot that they do when they're doing fasting. So you don't want to turn on the digestive tract, but you want to support the body because when you're doing an advanced water fast, you're getting rid of the worst heavy metals. The higher the vibration, the more that gets cleared out. But to actually go really high with the vibration, clear out heavy metals, clear out the toxins, clear out the things that could cause disease, but actually to go in and grab it and lock it down and bring it out of the body, and then it's just so efficient. And especially now, I did the last water fast, and I used just the black diamond crystals. And I'm going to tell you something. My energy was doubled on it. So energy was doubled. It didn't turn on my digestive tract, which is really good. Whereas the black gold, you can feel that it would. It's kind of bulkier. It doesn't come in like really, but it's a different product though. Black gold, it kind of goes in and you can feel it. It remediates all the way down to the large intestine. And we've seen with the black gold and also with our tummy love, we've seen people that have had bowel problems from the small intestine, stomach problems, small intestinal problems, large intestinal problems, and it does them all. It does them all. So when you start using things like tummy love, black gold, those two together, when we bring those two together, we hardly ever lose with somebody going, wow, I've seen a difference within days, right? So, and you don't work with human beings really, you just get the odd story, right?
Yes, yeah, we don't interface with them a whole lot. Our doctor don't. So everything I'm hearing mostly is secondhand. Yeah.
So where does your product also go? Like agriculture is the main one?
No, we're a human health company first and foremost.
Yeah.
There are some, like I was saying earlier, there are some agricultural companies that deal with us because they like food grade inputs.
Yeah, right.
So we're active in that end of the market.
So what do you see for the future? What are you working on?
We want to have a better understanding of the product itself and what parts of the product have an effect in what ways on the human body. So that's sort of our central driving thing.
Right.
So we're a bit of nerds. We like research.
We'll have to work more together then,
Sure.
Because, the proof is in the pudding. When you have so many people talking about the same story, it's not just a story anymore, right?
And this story goes back thousands of years, right? You're talking about it being referenced thousands of years ago as a health aid in some of the most populated countries in the world. So the story's old in some ways, but relatively new in others because we're rediscovering it.
Right. We are rediscovering it. Well, thank you. Is there anything else you want to close with? Let our audience know?
I think that's about it.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
So, everybody, thanks for joining me for another Doc of Detox show. And just know that last night at 1 minute to midnight, we put our Humic Fulvic on sale. Okay? So go check it out. Go to Doc of Detox, go to store.docofdetox.com. Take a look at our Humic Fulvic products. And if you have any questions, give us a call at 855-900-4544, extension 5. So if you love the products, this is the time you might want to get them. And if you've never tried them, maybe this is the time to try them. Okay? Have a beautiful day. And just know this. There's a genius inside. There's a practitioner inside. Just find your brave heart roar. Have the best day of your life. G'day, I'm Dr. Darryl Wolfe. Do you know why you or your friends or your family are struggling with their health? Well, because they've never been given a strategy. And every time they go to see a health practitioner, whether it's medical or natural, all they're doing is getting Band-Aids. What if we were able to create a strategy that you could create the perfect day from the minute you woke up until you went to bed, and then we continue to guide and support you along your journey as you grow, your program grows. And what if you only paid one price, and you had unlimited support and guidance for the rest of your life? That's called the Perfect Day Consultation. So what is the New World Practitioner Certification? Well, it's made up of 21 days. And understand something, it's made up of the Whole Life Coach certification. And understand, we go deeper in that 8 days than anybody else goes when it comes to learning how the invisible creates the physical, the psychological creates the biological. And we teach you about energy medicine and about vibration and frequency, because that's all it is. And that's the most important fact. And then when it comes to the Wolfe Non-Surgical certification, nobody can pull fibroids apart or reverse joint, muscle, tendon, ligament problems or scar tissue from surgery quicker than we can. And we offer a money-back guarantee to all our patients. Now, why would we do that? Because we pull off the I am possible and we reverse the irreversible. Check us out.